Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Namaduhu wa nasalli ala Rasul al-Kareem. Viewers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the owner, the ruler of the universe. He makes rules for all his creation and he enforces the rules. We know from experience when people rebel against the state, it is called treason. And when the person or people who are responsible for the rebellion are caught, they are tried and they are punished and they are executed. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the same system. When people rebel against Allah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes decision, He has the power to control, He has the power to carry out His decisions. And of course, the people do not understand the conditions that Allah creates. Allah doesn't execute people like the state does. Allah executes people according to His own plan. Allah is merciful, but Allah is also strict in punishment. This is one of the things that Allah mentioned in the Quran, that Allah gives respite up to a certain time. But when rebellion keeps on going, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends punishment on the people. So wise people are those who take to learn a lesson from that. The people of Nuh alayhi salam, Prophet Noah, they were rebellious. They were rebelling against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Nuh alayhi salam warned them. He said, if you listen to me, if you obey me, then Allah will send blessings. And if you disobey, that you will be punished. But they kept on disobedience, they kept on disobeying, and then the punishment came. The similar is the case with all the people. The ulama gave the example that for a person, if the owner of a cow finds the cow is not giving milk, then the cow is sent to the slaughterhouse. So that is the same thing with regards to people. Allah created the human being and the jinn for his ibadah, for his worship. And when an ibadah worship means obedience, it includes salat, it includes fasting, it includes hajj and other duties that have been imposed. But ibadah, the word worship, is a much broader word. It means obedience to Allah in all matters. So whenever a person is engaged in whatever activity, whether he's engaged in business, running a government, and social relations, etc., all these are become ibadah, worship, if the commandments, if it's done according to the rules that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has laid down for His creation. So only Allah is worthy of obedience. When He makes rules, the rules have to be enforced. And if they're not enforced, then people bring destruction upon themselves. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made these rules for the benefit of mankind. All these rules have been given to protect mankind from the harm. And the shaitan, the devil, always tries to change these rules and makes his own rules to make it hard for the people. The human beings today have made life very difficult for themselves. They have gone to a point where living has become so hard for the average person. And the reason is that they have disregarded the rules that Allah has made for the human being. And they have replaced those rules by the rules of human beings, rules made by human beings who are not knowledgeable. One of the punishments Allah gives to the people when they become rebellious is that He appoints incompetent, unfit people as their leaders. And they mislead them and they cause more destruction. So this is another form of punishment on the people because of their disobedience. We know that In a democracy, the majority prevails. And when the majority is misguided, they will choose leaders who are misguided too. And the leaders will bring disaster upon them. You see, in the last century, the biggest uh, tragedies that are inflicted on people were done by democracies. People were brought into power through the democratic process, through the majority system, and they brought destruction on the people. The wars that were fought, the World War I, World War II, they were fought by democracies. So if people are so smart, how is it that they chose leaders who brought destruction on them? There's a big lesson for all mankind that democracy is a way to disaster. When people are they are taught that this is the only way to succeed. Islam gave a system, a beautiful system, 1400 years ago, which was not democracy. It was based on the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The leaders were brought into power by people who understood the system of Allah. They were wise people and they brought wise people into power. And those people brought prosperity and success. The first four rulers of Islam, the rightly guided caliphs, the Khulafa Rashidin, they were people who were the most God-fearing, the most fearful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They were not afraid of the people. They were ruling under the Quran. Their constitution was the Quran. And the biggest check on them was the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In a democracy, the leaders have the fear of the people, that if they don't please the people, then they will be thrown out of office. They get into power and then they exploit the people and they deceive the people. But this is something the people have brought upon themselves. They have created a system which is self-destructive. All over the world we see that problems that are coming up in one form or the other is because of the so-called democratic system. This has been a big curse on humanity. It produces leaders who are incompetent, who are corrupt, who are manipulative, who try different methods of deception to get elected, to get into power, and then they do more corruption and more manipulation, deception to remain in power. And people get fooled to think that it's the people's government. It's not the people's government. It is the government of a few corrupt people who remain in power and keep themselves entrenched. This is the worst form of government that anyone can have developed. And Islam has a system, an alternative system, that brings people into power who are the most righteous, the best of the people. And these people work for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it is for the people to choose people like that who have the fear of Allah. The common person, he will bring people, if he makes the effort, he will find people like that, and those people will be working for the benefit of the people. They will not be working for their benefits. Look in any part of the world where there is a democratic system. It is no better than the corruption of dictatorships, of the absolute monarchs, rulers. This is a new type of dictatorship of the corrupt who get into power and stay there by deceiving people. And this is something people have to look into critically, that this so-called solution to humanity's problems, majority view, is the best way to go. This has proven to be a failure. Capitalism has failed, socialism has failed, liberalism, democracy, all these systems have failed. The only system that has not been tried by the human beings in the last several centuries is the Islamic system. Islamic system is the one that brought prosperity to millions and millions of people. And Muslims, who were supposed to take the lead and show the world how the system works, themselves fell into the trap. You just look at the condition in Pakistan, which is considered to be a democratic country, a democratic state. All the parties are fighting with each other for power, and once they get into power, they start looting the treasury. They start using the treasury as if this was their personal checking account. This is the result of democracy. The people who get elected, they are the most corrupt, they are the most deceiving, and the common person thinks that their solutions will be found by these people. All these leaders learn how to deceive people. They're deceivers, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has warned, and the biggest deceiver, of course, is the shaitan, the devil. These people are agents of the shaitan, and they deceive for their own benefit. But of course, in the end, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the end, it says in the Quran that look what was the end of those people. See, Allah doesn't talk about the beginning of the people. See what was the end of the people. So these people who are corrupt and dishonest, you see how they end up. The history of Pakistan is an example. How the leaders, there's 100% failure rate. All the so-called democratic elected leaders chosen so-called by the people, see what happened to them. Bhutto was elected by the people in Pakistan with a very big majority, landslide win in West Pakistan, and Mujibur Rahman had a win in East Pakistan. And the first free election in Pakistan resulted in the breakup of Pakistan. This is the first result of a democratically elected government. The breakup of the country broke up into two parts. The previous governments were not good, but they didn't claim to be democratic. But they didn't have the same democratic veneer. But the 1970 election, which was supposed to be the first free election, brought destruction. The country was broken up into two parts. And then we know what happened. But we know Bhutto was hanged and we know Mujib was killed. So this is the end of the people who were considered to be very powerful democratic leaders. And then we see the end of the other democratic leaders. All these people end up in disgrace. They end up in misery after having inflicted misery on the people. So when people are going to learn, is up to them. The choice is theirs. They want to go on with this system of electing corrupt people who are very smart in deceiving people, then they have no one to blame except their own selves. The system of Islam gives people the best people in leadership positions. The people are elected, or people are selected rather, because of their connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This was the way the Khulafa Rashidin, the rightly guided caliphs, were selected. They were the best people of the society. And they selected the best people in top leadership positions. They were selected because of their Islam, because of their connection with Allah, how obedient they were to Allah. This was the measure, this was the criteria. In Pakistan, this is not even a criteria. People are not selected because of their knowledge of Islam or because of their practice of Islam. They are selected because of how electable they are, how many votes they can get, and votes they get by buying people. And everybody knows about it. It's not a secret. It's everybody knows about it. And still they go on doing it and pretend that it's going to change, that it's going to bring different results. This kind of corruption cannot be eliminated by this system. You see, we hear about talk about um, accountability and all this nonsense about bringing people to trial and try. But what is the result of it, all that? At the end of the day, there is more misery and there's more corruption. Has corruption gone away? Imran Khan came with their slogan of uh, accountability and justice. There's a movement for justice. Uh, the result is before everybody's eyes. 2 years have passed, and we can see how much justice there is. It's the same old system of corruption. It's just new faces and doing the same thing. They they're just doing the same kind of trickery and fraud which the previous people were doing. And unfortunately, the common person, he still doesn't understand where the problem is. They elect these people because they think they are very educated and they're going to solve the problems. Education doesn't solve the problems. It's the people who are fear for Allah. The people should select those people who have a record of righteousness, and it's not the Pakistanis are not in a position. Pakistanis are not so bad that they cannot find a few hundred or few thousand people who are of that level who will not deceive the people. A country of millions of people, it's not possible that they cannot find people who have connection with Allah. They keep giving examples of nations that have made progress, but they don't they don't give examples of people like the Sahaba who have established, who have proven that government can be run by people who have connection with Allah.